Right. Yeah. Hello again, Emily.
Hello again.
So as we were just saying, we actually met up yesterday because you was up here visiting a friend, so I came through to say hello. But we'd all and there's been lots of drama going on my social media with someone accusing me of transphobia, which timed perfectly because we'd already said that we was going to do another podcast about the fact that I've obviously, you know that I've been doing some stuff recently, and at one point I went to work with some young trans people, just doing a bit of boxing training with them, a bit of health and fitness, at a sort of youth organization, very famous one, youth organization near me, and they mentioned that one of the nights was a trans night, and how would I feel about going down and doing that? And I sort of said the same to them that I say to everybody that I don't pretend that I'm like pro-trans or anything, or that I know much about it. Do you know what I mean? But I'm not anti either. I've got opinions on certain stuff, but I'm certainly not full of hatred. And I went along, and yeah, like I said to them, I'm just like you bog standard sort of working class British male. I think, heterosexual, wife, 2 kids, work, don't get paid enough, everything's stress. Do you know what I mean? But I think that most people from my background, most of the people that I talk to, we all say the same thing. We're not really asked, as long as people are sound with us, we're sound with them. And that's the top and bottom of it. Like, it really is that simple. As long as people are all right with me, right, I'm all right with them. And that's the top of, that's it. So what I wanted to talk about, though, was the sort of where I've, had a bit of an interest in it now in the trans world, the trans world, through talking to you. Through doing that, I sort of, it makes me pay attention to things a little bit more. And I wanted to do a podcast with you anyway, because of the fact that I think it was me that shared a post from the Daily Mirror about a trans person that, well, what the Mirror did is they put this post up and they put a blatant picture of a man up and said, woman jailed for so-and-so, so-and-so, right? And what I knew straight away is that that's done on purpose to annoy people that see that online. And then you go to it and it's thousands of comments deep usually. And it is very like anti-trans. But I know that the Mirror and all the other sort of media outlets, they do that on purpose. Do you know what I mean? They purposely use that picture and purposely use the word woman, knowing that it will evoke that reaction. Do you know what I mean? So that's one side of it where I'm like, well, actually, no, I see what's going on here. Do you know what I mean? That is just causing a problem. It's whipping up a frenzy in it. It's causing hatred. And just sort of, whipping
and it's
everybody.
Not realistic.
It isn't realistic. Because straight away, like when I see that now, because I've sort of got to know you and because I've done other bits and bobs, there's no part of me that thinks, the trans world's really dodgy, like it's full of nonsense. Do you know what I mean? That doesn't happen. I saw that.
That's called the church. Thought, well, the church is full of nonsense.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? But I see pictures, like I see news articles like that now. And I just think to myself, you don't fool me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. It's to sell papers. It's for clickbait. And actually, like when I see that, I separate that from the people that I've got to know that are part of the trans world, because I just don't equate the two. Do you know what I mean? They're two completely separate things for me. But I know that the papers are aiming at people that do equate the two. Do you know what I mean? So there's that side of it. But then the other side of it is what just happened on my social media, where somebody thought, I've not got a clue who they were, and they turned up, and I've had a look at what was going on, and there's no way they came across any posts of mine by chance. They've had to have gone onto my profile, and the post that they was using to say was transphobic and to say made me a danger. There was numerous stuff said about it.
You're so dangerous, Ricky.
Oh, it was weird. But that post was from weeks ago. And bearing in mind, like, I'm a proper Facebook addict and I post all the time. For somebody to have found that, they've got to have gone onto my Facebook, gone through it loads, found one thing, and in my mind said, that's what I can be offended about, and that's what I can use as a weapon. Do you know what I mean? And straight away it was like, I think the person was trans. I couldn't tell because there was no profile picture or anything like it. It was very locked down account.
Just to say something about that, it's this is a good kind of time to highlight this, right? You'll get people, invariably on the left, the far left, who are going to be offended by anything. You know, people that get offended, like they look for that wording that could be taken the wrong way to go, I'm offended by that. So it doesn't matter if you're trans, gay, black, white, whatever, it doesn't matter. But you're going to get offended by something because you're looking to be offended.
So some
Even
people
when
get offended. Sorry, you go. Well,
so there's like there's people, you know, and I'm not a member of the so-called trans community. Like, I'm just me. I do my thing. You've met me in person. You know what I'm like. You know, the camera is so evil to me. But but you know that you'll have people where someone said, oh, you know, I'd never know you were trans, and you know, you look really good, like, you blah blah blah. And it's like they take that as an offensive comment. It's like someone's trying to give you a compliment, girl. Take it, own it. You know, someone's being nice, and then they call them out for it. And it's like,
well, for me, this wasn't even that I think that person was offended. That's not what I'm bothered about. What I'm bothered about is the fact that that person looked for something that they could say that's offensive. I'm offended. If I'm offended, you've done something bad. You're a bad person. You're dangerous. Like they were saying that, because just for anybody, I'll put the picture up, but for anybody that's listening, I put a picture of myself up because I got a little radio show on Nova FM, 102.5 FM in the Tyneside region, available on DAB up here, and also there's an app from all good app stores like that. So I've got a little radio show up here. I put a picture saying I was Pat Sharp, and he put a picture of Jimmy Savile. Right, I'm laughing now because I thought it was funny straight away, and I still do. So he put a picture of Jimmy Savile up, and that was it. I think he just put the picture up, and then I commented saying, "Oh, like, yeah, he was a sterling radio DJ. Nobody can take that away from him. The rest of his behaviour was a bit iffy, right?" And that was it. And this person was saying that because that was on one, I hadn't put it up, somebody else had, but because it was on my Facebook, that meant that I was a red flag. They were saying that who knows what goes on behind closed doors. I mean, it was mental, and I haven't taken it seriously at all. Do you know what I mean? Just the fact that it's in people's minds now to think to themselves, how can I get somebody in trouble? I know I'll find something and say that that's really upset me. And that person was saying that actually, like, they had every right to be, because they were being really horrible as well. And they had every right to be because that Jimmy Savile picture had triggered like emotions in them because they were abused as a child. But they had to go onto my Facebook. They had to search through lots of stuff. So it's like, I haven't triggered you. You triggered yourself. And then they said that it was transphobic because if they posted that, everybody would vilify them. But I'm like, well, what's that? You know, it was just really.
No, she said
it was really.
So he said if a trans person had posted that, and it's like, I could have posted that.
Jimmy Savile, and it's like, well, what's that got to do?
I made a Jimmy Savile joke when I was playing the Dame in the local panto, you know, and everyone laughed.
It's just the way it is, we make humor over dark subjects, and we find it funny. You know, like just because I can laugh at a flipping Jimmy Savile picture doesn't mean that I'm like, oh yeah, I was a massive fan of Savile. You know, it feels like there's the likes of almost everybody right in the middle that are willing to talk to each other, even if we, you know, haven't got lots in common, get along with each other, you know what I mean, live harmoniously side by side. And then all of a sudden there's this far left and far right that are just whipping up, you know, the press are whipping up a frenzy, people that like the person yesterday, trying to get everybody into trouble. And where do we go from here? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does it sort itself out? I think the only way it sorts itself out is mad people like you and I that are like, oh, I'll talk to you. Nothing like me. Yeah, I'll talk to you then just to find out all about it. Do you know what I mean?
I think it's like, you know, I was having a conversation with someone this weekend, and we were talking about some book. I think it's something to do with it, like about English people's behavior, you know. And it's got a section about people when you go to the pub, and when you go to the pub, you know, you take your hat off and you hang it up, and everyone's equal in the pub. Doesn't matter if you're the lord of the manor or the local, like, whatever. And it doesn't matter. Everyone talks to everyone on the same level, you know. And you can get jobs in the pub. You can get, you know, do business deals in the pub. You know, it's a great leveler and a great place to do business, you know. And I think that's something about sort of particularly with like you say yourself, it's sort of your working class. I find, I've got friends who, if someone came in the pub and started giving me shit for being trans, like they beat the shit out of them,
Yeah.
like no question. This is including like boys who are travelers, boys who are like, all working class boys, and they, straight cis guys, but they're super protective of me. I love it. It's great, and it's all of this hate that you're seeing at the moment is manufactured in the media, because I don't see it in my real day-to-day life, like
Yeah,
either
and I don't,
professionally or
I
personally.
don't meet people, like, we talk about certain stuff which we're going to go over, like, and we've got an opinion on certain stuff, but I don't know anybody, like none of the people that I grew up with are like, I hate trans people. Like, I hate them. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of frustrations about some of the stuff going on,
and a lot of the stuff that's going on. Take that Isla Bryson, who was is a man who raped women, and then decided to stick on a wig and say he was trans, right? Fuck off.
Yeah.
And they go to a women's wig. Fuck off. Like,
Yeah.
Firstly, he shouldn't be in prison at all. He should be put against a tree and
Yeah, I know.
I'm not having a bar of that, because he should at least be on the nonce wing, or preferably hanging from a tree. This is simple as that for me. So it shouldn't even be a thing.
Whose fault's that though? Do you know what I mean? Because like where we swap notes and that's one of the things that I do want to ask. This whole sort of self-identifying, you can just, and this is where even I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? This is madness. Where you just wake up and say, I'm a woman.
No, okay. So like it doesn't work like that. In reality, it doesn't work like that. If you're trans, and we've covered this before, when you're a kid, like, particularly boy, I think it's probably a bit different with girls, because girls do go through that tomboy phase. They kind of think that they're boys until they're about 14. And they suddenly realize, actually, I'm a princess, and they go completely the other way.
I know what you mean.
Whereas,
I've seen
exactly, but when you're at school or whatnot, and you're a little queer boy, you're the last to get picked for sports, because this is another thing. The sports thing. It's like, we shit at it. We got no interest in it, and it's kind of like, well, I don't even understand a tiny portion of us are trans in the first place, and of us, a tiny fraction is going to be interested in sports. Like, we're all on the stage doing stage things, So it's kind of
on that note though, like, how have we ended up in a situation where somebody can like what you said, somebody can put on a wig and say I'm a woman, and everybody's like, all right, we've got to treat them like a woman.
But that's the danger again of using kind of terms like self-ID, etc. So I've been out for 25 years or whatever, and during that time, I lived a lot of my life as a woman. I didn't do it full time until kind of a bit later in life, I guess, just because of professional stuff, and I was kind of scared of what people would say in my professional life, particularly dealing with the public as a vet. I didn't want that shit on my day-to-day life. So even though kind of, you do your skin routine, you kind of look a bit feminine anyway, but you don't I just didn't feel comfortable in doing it in my personal life, professional life, until I left clinical practice and went into sort of AI and stuff, and I don't deal with the public anymore. And since then, it's been great. But being able to just put on a wig and go like, yeah, I'm a woman. Like, you could, it should be self-evident that I'm not the same as Isla Bryson.
Well, right? Yeah, it should be. But how do we sort that out, though? Do you know what I mean? Because I get like where the likes of yourself are saying, well, no, I want rights. Do you know what I mean? I want to be recognised as trans. I want to be protected, sort of, from like, I don't know.
But no more than anyone else, Ricky. No more than anyone else. I don't want special rights. I don't want, kind of like, oh, look at me, I'm trans, I'm special, make me special. I just want to be normal. Like, just, it's not. It's not, and I think that's a thing that's got a lot of people's backs up, is the whole kind of trans community, and I hate that freaking term, but the whole trans community, which is that really the far left people who've hijacked the whole trans issue, like they have with so many other things, is that they are demanding things of people, of ordinary day-to-day people that are unrealistic and
yeah.
taking the piss, for want of a better word. And that's what's pissing people off. It's like, oh God, what do you want now? Like, what, I don't even get this stuff, and it's like, well, you're asking too much, when we are very, very, very much in the minority.
Well, do you remember
but even though we're in the minority, we shouldn't be shat on because we're in the minority, but we shouldn't get special treatment because we're in the minority. Like, I don't I don't go like, well, I'm trans, so I get to, do this, that, and the other thing, get away with it, because that's fucking wrong.
Well, I find, you know what I find about the self-identification thing, right, is that I'm mixed race, right? Obviously, as you can tell, I'm not a white person. I'm half Indian, right? But I didn't grow up around any Indian people at all. So my dad split before I was born. My mum was a white single mum. I grew up in council estates in London, and then I moved up to South Shields, and I grew up in like the roughest council estate in South Shields, predominantly white. All my family are white. I've got a couple of other cousins that are mixed race, but culturally, all my friends are white. In school, I knew the Asians, but I didn't hang around with them. If you was to put me in a room with a bunch of sort of people from the Asian community and a bunch of people from the white community, I would gravitate towards the white people because that's my culture, right? But that's literally like me waking up and saying, well, all right, well, because that's, I feel part of, sort of white British culture, you have to accept that I'm white, but I'm not white. Do you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter how much I say it to people. But can you imagine if I woke up and was like, no, I'm white? Everybody has to accept that I'm white, even though you can see that I'm brown. If I tell you I'm white, right, you have to accept it. But I can't do that, right? People from both communities would tell me to get fucked if I did that, right? Both communities. So actually, have I just worked out that self-identification for trans people is it's racist?
Well,
yeah, white privilege.
My God, yeah, you've got to go. Well done, Megan.
Yeah, the woke have to stop doing self-identification because I can't. Yeah.
Well, but the thing is, though, like we talked about this the other day, is that I don't see you as even being brown. It's not even a thing. Like, it doesn't come into my. So, and I was thinking about this last night. It's the idea of when we watch a TV show or let's say Terminator, right? Now, if we watch Terminator now, you're like, oh, these special effects are tragic, and you can't suspend your disbelief anymore.
Yeah.
Or as much as you could. Like, it kind of spoils the story. But back in the day, back in the 80s, when that came out and we were watching it, it was the best special effects in the world. So it was much easier to suspend your disbelief and believe that this was actually, a robot from the future, And kind of, I think it's the same thing, that unless you give me a reason to unsuspend my disbelief, then I'm just going to go like, well, I don't see you as that. Like, it's not relevant. Why is you being brown relevant, whether you're, Indian presenting or white presenting? It doesn't fucking matter.
Well, I'm massive on the fact that I think most of the divisions are cultural based anyway. And
true, but why do we have to stick a label on shit?
Yeah, even people that, I've met people that try and, like, they say to other people that they're racist, but then they meet me and they're like, oh, but like, I don't see you as Asian. And it's like, well, that's because culturally I'm the same as you, which kind of you should be asking yourself whether you are actually racist. And do you know what I mean? You should ask questions of yourself about that.
Well, there's another thing that I'd say to that then, right, which is people will not be racist till it suits them. So, for example, Rishi Sunak, when he was doling out free money during the lockdown, was dishy Rishi and this, that, and the other thing. And as soon as he was like wanting his money back, he was like, oh, look, freaking, we got an Indian. Oh, no, we got an Indian prime minister. Terrible. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, it's amazing how people were like in favor of him, and he was dishy. He's like, everyone was pro his Indian heritage when it suited them. And then the minute it didn't suit them anymore.
I mean, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that he's a massive cunt.
I mean, that doesn't help his case. I'll give you that. Yeah,
help.
But I mean, it's like we said in the very first podcast we did. It's like my approach on the world is just like, well, just don't be a cunt.
Yeah, well, I don't think there's
Because if
anyone
you're not
in
a cunt, people
government.
will accept you for whatever you are.
There's not a lot of people in government that can tick that box, and they haven't been able to for a while at the moment. I've given up on
on all
politics.
sides. On all sides.
Yeah,
they're all
I've
cunts.
given up. Like you were saying earlier about something that you want to mention, and I haven't even. I know nothing about it. I have stopped paying attention to all things political. That wine's not a pricey
grim.
one, then.
Do you know what? No, it's got a gold. It's got a gold medal. I just don't like wine. It's just the only thing I've got in the house.
Anyone gets a medal these days, don't they? It's probably just a participation medal.
Pickle. I'll give you that. We were talking about Dylan Mulvaney being the face of Bud Light.
Oh, well, I haven't seen this. I've just seemed to, do you know what? I've come out of COVID and I've really just sacked off like mainstream media. I don't watch much telly. I haven't seen any adverts. I don't really pay attention to
presenter.
Well, I've given up. Do you know what I mean? I've given up until until we get to an election. And like what I said, I see the same thing. So everybody's going to be outraged about this, this person, and a separate thing. Everybody's outraged about the fact that a black girl is playing a mythical creature. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you see it when it comes round time for Bond. Everybody gets outraged that Idris Elba was in the running for it, who for me at the time was the obvious choice. Do you know what I mean? Like, it had nothing to do. I could see past the whole fact that he was black and just think to myself, well, yeah, he's James Bond at the moment.
Yeah, is he a good actor?
Do you not know who Idris Elba is?
No, I said he's a good actor.
Oh, yeah, he's a good actor. He's cool, isn't he? He's cool. Do you know what I mean? James Bond's meant to be cool. And Idris Elba's a pretty cool guy, like. So I could see that, but people... I don't know. People get outraged. So now I just switch off. I see it and I feel, I can't be fucking bothered. I've read all the comments before, but with different character views. Do you know what I mean? It's all the same drivel that's coming out.
So the thing that's funny about the whole Bud Light thing, right? So it's an America thing because no British person, I don't think in the country would be able to stomach the tepid piss water that is.
Oh, it is piss water, Bud Light, yeah.
Right. But the thing is, right. So Dylan Mulvaney is this trans woman who's basically started her proper transition, like going full time on TikTok, I think it was, and it was tragic in a corny kind of. It was cringe. It was cringe. That's the word I'm looking for. And it's like, okay, fine, whatever. Obviously, loads of people came for her and this, that, and the other thing. And she's actually doing pretty well in the transition itch. And but anyways, Bud Light made her like one of the faces of Bud Light, and there was this sort of I don't even know if she's really a face or whether it's just like a TikTok promotion or whatever, but it doesn't really matter. But there's pictures of her on Bud Light cans, and you got all these bloody American blokes with like pickup trucks. You know when you got like the gap between the wheel and the wheel arch like this, and it's like, oh, honey, that's giving small dick energy anyway. But it's like. You have to have a fucking mangina to drink fucking Bud Light anyway. So fucking Dylan Mulvaney is an alpha male compared to you pricks anyway. And you're there throwing it away. It's like, oh, no, it's a tranny. It's like a tranny wouldn't fucking lower themselves to drink that piss water.
I don't drink anymore. But when I did drink, I don't think that, and this isn't like glorifying it. Well, it kind of is. But I don't think that I could have ever got drunk off Bud Light. I don't know how.
No.
It would have taken ages.
By which time
I would have just been bloated.
That's fucking me. That's shandy.
Americans can't drink anyway, so
no, they're pussies.
The Americans. It was. You think that's a stereotype, but every time I've come across the Americans, they can't keep up with the Brits when it comes to drinking. So, yeah. So I agree with you. Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I should imagine it's the same usual sort of faux outrage. On the other hand, though, I do understand the outrage about the whole sports thing, which we've talked about before as well. Like a sort of trans woman that was born as a male can't compete against women in women's sports. I just think it's mental. It's just, and it's really unfair. It's against sport. Do you know what I mean? Like, and as a sports fan.
Yeah,
where does that end?
I mean, I play village cricket, right? And we've got a ladies' team, and I'm shit even for the ladies' team. Like, I can't throw. Like, if to talk about like throw like a girl, it's like literally like my 13-year-old niece can throw better than me, you know. Actually,
But
she's 12.
that's as a hobby. I'm talking about, you know, competing
Yeah, I know
and
you
doing it at a level where you're competing. It's not a coincidence that all of a sudden, who was the swimmer that was like, you know, hundreds and hundreds of places down as a male, and then Leah, is it Leah Thomas? Was it Leah Thomas?
Leah Thomas, yeah.
Yeah, Leah Thomas. And then obviously it's digging up old ground, but you know what I mean? It's a prime example.
Okay,
Just,
all right. And riddle me this then. Okay, I'm going to throw
then.
something out a little bit controversial here, right?
Go on,
Okay,
then.
so it's like, okay, so you're admitting then that even like a bloke that's been hamstrung by taking testosterone blockers and estrogen, he still smashes even the top female athletes, right? So what these kind of people who are outraged by this are saying that women are physically inferior, yes?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the logical conclusion of that statement.
Yeah.
Which means then, well, why are women on the front line with the army if they can't carry the weight, if they can't run as fast, if they don't have the cardiovascular fitness? How are they firefighters? How are they this, that, and the other things? Like, well, you can't have it both ways, ladies. You can't have it both ways.
When it comes to athletes as well, you know, and this is the thing, it's the female athletes that come out and highlight this, like Serena Williams got asked about, you know, would she be able to take on Andy Murray? And she just said outright, she said it would last about 10 minutes and he would beat me 6-0, 6-0, 6-0. And it's about this prison in America, right? And like this prison at that time was the worst prison in America, which, you know, if you look at America's mental. I've started really sort of paying attention to it and realizing what you were saying at the beginning of this. You know, the Wild West was only like 4 people ago. I think when I worked out generational, it was only about 8 or 9 generations ago. So there's it's still chaos out there. And there's a reason why. It's because everybody is still, do you know what I mean? Like there are only a few descendants from people that were having to run around and murder everybody to not get killed themselves. But this prison, anyway, sorry, I'm digressing. This prison, the prisoners took it over. It was so violent that, you know, when the governor went in, he was saying, this new governor went in the first 5 days, 3 people got killed by having their throats slit. And that was normal. You know, it was interviewing some of the guards and the guards were saying the moment we walked through that door, we was in prison with them and it was us or them. So they formed a gang and there was all this murder and stuff and all this violence going on. But once the prisoners took control of the prison and got rid of they kidnapped a load of the guards and then they took control of the prison, right? And then pretty much instantly, the blacks took over a wing, the Aryan whites took over a wing, the Hispanics took over a wing, right? And then whoever else, and then they all met up with each other, right? And they sorted the peace agreement out. Just said, everybody keep themselves to themselves. We won't come into your part. If you need anything from us, we'll help you, like water and stuff like that. And there was no violence. The prisoners stopped fighting amongst each other for that, you know, for the time that they had control of it. There's like the most violent prisoners in the country all just suddenly sorted out amongst themselves. Do you know what I mean? Because it benefited all of them suddenly. So, you know, it is interesting.
It just shows the tribal nature of humans.
You what, sorry?
It just shows the tribal nature of humans. We are designed, well, we have evolved to be part of a group.
Yeah.
That has a particular identity. So whether that be, you know, it's usually fairly obvious, but we naturally want to stick to that group. And the whole thing that you have with this kind of, particularly with identity politics, is this concept of othering. So making someone very obviously not part of your group. You're not one of us, so I hate you. You know, and it could be, it could even be if you're, I don't know, what's that girls' game that everyone in England seems to like? Football.
Have you ever? I told you about this. Have you ever seen the documentary Next Goal Wins? Right, and I know you don't like football, but you should watch it because I watched this ages ago, and it's the Samoan national football team were ranked the worst in the world. And then some Dutch coach goes in to take over, and obviously it's Samoa, so the males are all very, you know, that sort of.
Okay. So I mean, I've been to Samoa, right? So when I was at vet school, we went over and we did a load of like desexing and stuff. We do it every year as like a sort of charity thing, right? Now, Samoa is an amazing place. If ever you get the chance to go, you've got to go. But they have a thing called Fa'afafine, which is the third gender.
Yes.
Which is
yeah.
And the Fa'afafine, like, because I mean Samoans. Oh shit, what happened there? Like Samoans are huge, including like even the women are huge, and often the Fa'afafines are kind of smaller and prettier than the women. But I ended up, because I was sat next to this Fa'afafine on this flight over, right? We just got yakking. And we became good mates, and like she invited me to the village, so I got to go to the village on a Sunday for the feast and stuff. It was so amazing, and like you have this choir singing in the church because they're like super religious.
Yeah,
and you know, even I will swallow my pride if I've been invited somewhere.
Yeah. I know.
I'm when in Rome, and so I go to this church, and it was beautiful in there, and they had like this choir, and like the Fa'afafines was singing like the top parts. I was like, girls, he could sing. Like, I mean, it was like being in a Welsh choir. It was brilliant.
On the national football team. So on this documentary, it's about the national football team, and they've got a Fa'afafina on the national football team. And then they start talking about it, and they just said, "Oh, it's no big deal over here." And it was like, what? And they just said, "No, I'm classed as a third sex. Nobody's bothered." And nobody was bothered. You know, on this football team, part of the team. And you would see, like, playing football would play it the same as everybody else. As soon as it stopped, Fa'afafina, you know, camping about. But everyone was just like, oh, yeah, that's the Fa'afafina. It's just.
And do you know what? That to me would be the ideal over here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like.
But then this is the problem, because I would say that I could see an argument to say that there's a third sex. Right, and it's sort of the people in between, if you like. Do you know what I mean? You know, like the Fa'afafina says, I'm a third sex, but at the moment we're being told, no. If you're trans, you are the exact same. It's only by a small percentage of people, obviously. But
it's only because we culturally don't have that option. I think is probably the best way of explaining it. And I guess. You know, people who are watching are kind of like, what the fuck's a Fa'afafine? Yeah, It truly is a third gender. Actually, an Indian, I think an Indian thing. There's a similar. What are they called? They've got a name. It's not quite as egalitarian.
They go around in India, don't they? They go around in India asking for blessings, and if you don't give them, I know the people that you're talking about. Yeah, I know the people that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Again, sort of been there forever. Been part of the culture forever. Do you know what I mean? And you know, maybe
even in ancient Rome, even in ancient Greece, I mean, it was full of fags. It's just they weren't called fags back then.
Yeah, maybe it's just too new in this country, and that's why it's all a bit chaotic at the moment.
Well, I think it's more to do with kind of Christianity, you know, and that whole. That whole sort of religiosity thing that is peculiar to that particular religion, you know. It's amazing that the actual people that do the noncing are men in frocks, but they've got dog collars.
That church is a little bit iffy.
Yes. Well, in America, they actually have insurance covering priests and pastors for sexual abuse of children.
Do you know what?
How is that a fucking thing?
I've got some American friends. I've got some American friends, like, you know, that I've asked whether a couple of them. I did one with a guy called Jamar when he had, you know, he nearly killed himself. He was about to shoot himself. So we did a podcast. But I'm friends with a few of them. And I want to do a podcast with them just about America, because it's fucking mental over there. Like, do you know what I mean? And it got me thinking, this is what I started thinking about, because I watched Waco the other day, and I thought, like, all of a sudden you see that this guy, he's turned up and got himself a big sort of bit of land, and then he's got a flock, and all he's doing is preaching Jesus, and then they arm themselves, right? And then there's a massive shootout. And I just thought, oh, that's America. That's how it's always been. That's why nobody give up their guns. Do you know what I mean? Because actually, it was only a few generations ago that people went out there and formed flocks of religious people. Do you know what I mean? It was like, I'm the head person. I'll do the preaching. This is our flock. Everybody arm yourself. And if anyone comes along, we have to shoot them. Do you know what I mean? And that was the Wild West. Well, it was like really violent. You know, it's
It
only
wasn't
4
that
or
long
5
ago
people
that
down
we
the line.
burned, but it wasn't that long ago that we burned women at the stake for being witches. You know, you go, I found a witch, Barry bird, huh? You know, and it's like that whole. I mean, I despise Christianity. I despise all of the Abrahamic religions. They are based on an evil book. Yeah, they're all based on the same God. It's just they got different prophets, stroke messiahs, stroke whatever. But you know, the Old Testament is the most foul piece of fiction humanity has ever created. There, I said it.
Oh, no, you said it. Didn't bother me. No, I think it's
No,
madness.
no, it's,
Some of
you know,
the
the idea that an omnipotent being would nuke a city because the humans that he created did their own thing, and then an innocent woman that he spared said for no apparent reason said you mustn't turn around and look, but she turned around and looked and turned her into a pillar of stone, and then had 2 sisters rape their dad while he was drunk. So incestuous worry. How the fuck are these fucking Christians in America going like, we don't want no LGBTQ shit in our schools, but we have the Bible. The Bible's all right.
Is it Sodom? Is it Sodom where he chopped his daughter up?
Sodom and Gomorrah, yeah.
Offered his daughter, rather than hand over somebody, offered the daughter to be raped. And then, and then the daughter was raped to death on the doorstep. Yeah, he offered the daughter to spare the person that had gone in there. So I don't know, someone to do with God, I think. So he offered his daughter instead, and his daughter was then cut up and sent to the 7 like corners of the world. And I'm like, that sounds pretty horrific. I think there's a story in the Bible about a man that some children were teasing because he was bald. So God killed all the children. And I'm like, yeah. It's a little bit.
Yeah, well, you know, the reason Jesus wasn't in about Jesus is clearly a flaming homosexual, right? And he's in a very loving relationship with John, very obviously.
I don't know much about the Bible. I haven't read much.
Well, have a little read, you know, but yeah, he hangs around till his mid-30s, which is pretty old for biblical Bronze Age times. Spends his entire life with a group of 12 boys.
I thought he married. Didn't know. I thought he had a missus. I thought he had Mary Magdalene. Wasn't she his mistress?
No, she was a hooker. No, she was a hooker.
I thought that was his bird.
He wasn't. No, he wasn't railing her. No.
Well, I like to think he did.
Close your eyes and tug to whatever you like, babes.
Yeah.
But no, he left everything in his earthly life to John and asked his mother to love him as if it was his brother.
Back to sort of just people being offended now, and the fact that it has become a weapon. Like I can't get too much. The people that have been following me know that I'm embroiled in a bit of a legal matter. And my view is that people now know how to weaponize the idea of being offended. What I wrote down here is that people are being taught now that being offended, right, is the same as being punched in the face, right? You know, and you hear it, words are violent. And I can tell you now, I've been called a lot of names growing up, and I also got punched a lot of times. And being punched hurt more than being called names and that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, when we were growing up,
you know,
like you're my age, Ricky, right? You're the same age as me, aren't you? And in my day, or our day, it was sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Right.
I did right. So what I will say though is that, you know, when I do, it doesn't really happen very much anymore now that I've got a bit older. But a friend of mine pointed this out, right? And he's a friend of mine that actually went on to. We were really good friends. I'm not going to name him at all, but we were really good friends all the way through school. And this was when I lived down south, and then obviously I just disappeared at 12 or 11. I think I disappeared. But me and him had gone to infant school all the way through junior school together. And then when I went back down when I was 17, 18, I was like, where is so-and-so? And they said, he's in prison for murder. He killed somebody. Now he's come out now. Obviously he's done his sentence. We have like quite, again, interesting conversations because when we spoke to each other on the phone, and I was a bit worried because I was like, I wonder how he's going to come across. Is he like a road man and that, like? And when we spoke to each other, we were so pleased to get back in touch with each other because we were such good friends all the way through school. And he's Asian, this lad, and he sort of started explaining things to me. And it was him that reminded me. He was like, "Do you remember what it was like for us, Ricky, in the 80s? Like, you know, just the amount of racism that we faced." And I thought, fuck yeah, I forgot about that. Like in the 80s, do you know what I mean? Like when, you know, I was like the second generation kind of thing. I got racially abused every single day. Like, you know, like every day we would be getting called packies and stuff. Like, and I get the whole sticks and stones break your bones and stuff, but it isn't nice. Do you know what I mean? It isn't nice.
No,
like, just
it's not nice.
you know,
No.
constant.
I know.
Nice. But at the same time, you know, if somebody says something to me now, like, you know, I'm like, well, it's like yesterday. It's weird. I've got one person saying that I'm really offensive while they're saying really horrible things about me. But I'm like, well, that doesn't really bother me. Like, I don't let you.
Yeah,
bother
but
me,
okay. So our mutual acquaintance, shall we say? Because obviously I came in to bat for you. As soon as you tagged me in that thing, I was like, "Come on, girl!" It's like, nah,
any trans issues, right? Any trans issues. I've got a trans mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but that's like me saying I got a brown mate.
I'm here to tag.
You're token, right? Okay, you're token brown. I'm token tranny. Yeah. Okay, we good.
There you go.
I'm not being funny. Like the stuff he was coming out with, like, you know.
Oh, but
put red flags, or you know, and finding
this is what I was talking about. This is what I mean. So, on the other side of the fact that the media are whipping up hatred, right, and they know what they're doing. Do you know what I mean? They're getting the spoon out. They know it's going to annoy people. That makes you feel bad because you're being compared to people that you've got absolutely fuck all to do with. Do you know what I mean? So there's that side of it, right? That affects you, but then the side that affects me is that person, right? That's a narrative that gets used all the time. The fact that I've done something that they found offensive means that I'm dangerous. And I got the reasons. I was like, people, you know, one, saying you're offended is now a cultural weapon, right? That's what it's happened. Like, you've offended me. I expect some kind of retribution because of the fact that you hurt my feelings. Not even directly. You said something that I don't like the sound of. So I want some retribution. Right, you know, the other thing that I've wrote is that people are being taught that being offended is the same as being assaulted, whereas I would say it really isn't. I'm looking at the scars. I'm like, right, that was from a plank of wood with a nail on the top. That's from a brick. I've got a scar. And I'm like, well, I know, right, that you calling me a name isn't as bad as all of that, right? But the scariest reason for me, right, the scariest thing for me is that I'm of the opinion that some people genuinely believe it. They genuinely believe if you think something different from me, right, that I find offensive, you are genuinely a bad person because I'm such a wonderful person. Do you know what I mean?
No, do you know what? I don't think they do believe it. Sorry, I don't think they do believe it. No, not for a minute. I think they know what they're doing. You're right. Oh yeah, I think the left uses it. I mean, George Orwell put it perfectly in 1984 with the idea of someone becoming an unperson. You know, that's what cancellation is. It's unpersoning. You know, and I find that largely dangerous as a concept. I think a lot of people just show them. I mean, our mutual friend who shall remain unnamed.
Big Jim.
I say friend. Big Jim. Okay, you said it. You said you earlier. You went. Don't say
no, let it out.
Okay. Yeah, let it out. Fuck it. So yeah, our Big Jim, you know, was given it large. Saying that they were offended, but what they were saying is that they wanted you to shut up, and the way that they do that is to do this thing called cancellation, where they go, right, oh, I'm going to go to the authorities and I'm going to say you offended me, even if no reasonable person could find you guilty of any such causing of offense, and it's not illegal to cause someone offense. I mean, let's remember that it's not illegal.
This is what I've got that wrote down as well. I've got, I don't want to call it woke, right? Because again, woke just gets used a bit too much now as well. Do you know what I mean? And woke to me is the same as gammon. They're the same people, just on different sides of the coin. Do you know what I mean? But it never stacks up. That attitude in court. Whenever it turns into a legal dispute, people's feelings never stack up. It never holds. They always lose the court case or whatever. Do you know what I mean? The law isn't on the side of saying, "Oh, that hurt my feelings," so you can't laugh at a picture of Jimmy Savile, right? Well, I bet you legally I can. Do you know what I mean? Legally, I'm allowed.
Right. So legally, the offense is to incite someone to commit an act of violence or other crime. So if someone truly is trying to, like, they go, do you know what, I don't want to have nothing to do with you because you're a tranny. It's like, fair enough. Like, all that's done is painted you to me as that you're a cunt, and probably paints the people around you that you're a cunt. Like, unless
my big thing is, if I found out my neighbor was racist and didn't like me because I was brown, right? But when we saw each other, they didn't say anything. Fine. Absolutely fine. You think what you want. I couldn't care less. Don't bring it to me. Do you know what I mean? Don't infringe on my life. Because that's where it's like, you've got the right to think that, but your rights stop where mine start. So you could, and I know people that, even, and back in the day, when, shit was rife, like what I was saying when we were growing up, but actually neighbors that maybe didn't like the fact that they had packies next door would see them and be like that, morning. Now, if you can do that, we don't have to agree with each other. As long as when you see me, you can just say, you're right. That's it. Be civil with each other and get along with each other and not sort of infringe on each other.
I'm gonna add a corollary to that, though, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier.
A what? What was that word?
Corollary. A corollary. Oh, now I can't fucking say it. Corollary. Fuck.
That's the red. That's that cheap red.
Yeah, it's the red. It's this nasty ass. I don't even think it was cheap, bitch. Again, like, going back to that thing we were saying earlier about what we evolved as humans to be. So we've broken bread now. So if we've broken bread, we are kind of on the same level.
Do you know Bernard Manning? You know Bernard Manning.
Yeah, I remember him. Yeah,
he lived next to a really racist comedian, like really racist. I watched some of his stuff, right, and some of it I'm like, well, that's a bit much. I have to admit, I watched some of his stuff, and he'll come out with a racist joke. And I've seen a clip where he's telling all these racist jokes, and there's all these Jamaican women sitting in the crowd laughing their heads off, right? And even though he was really, and he said, like, he used to say things like, and he was being serious. He was like, if I was driving down the road as a taxi driver and I saw a black customer, I wouldn't stop for them. So then you're like, God, you are actually a full-blown racist. And he would come out with things where you're like, it's no surprise that he was a dinosaur. When he died, his neighbors, who were Indian doctors, released a statement saying that he was a wonderful man to live next door to. They'd always got along with each other. Do you know what I mean? And he'd always been a great neighbor. And they considered him a friend.
I don't know. I think that I can't remember. Like, there's an American comedian. I mean, he came in for a lot of shit recently. Kind of a skinny looking guy, but you have a lot of these. That's him.
So yeah, my favorite comedian in the world.
Yeah, but I mean, and there's quite a few of him in the same vein that take the piss out of white people, right?
Yeah,
and I find it funny. It's observational comedy.
Yeah, I find some of it
and I even find, because like a lot of trans people kicked off about fucking Ricky Gervais's thing about the
yeah.
Oh, them real women, the ones with the beards. I was crying laughing at that. I was like, I was not offended in the slightest. It was funny. And the thing is if you can't, me, like, I don't take anything at all in this universe seriously anyway. And so, like, if you can't laugh at yourself, like, you kind of have a little word at yourself, because No,
Yeah.
none of us is perfect. And Joe, every motherfucker has got their skeletons in their closet, right? So a lot of
Yeah.
these people who are like super homophobic is like there's that American senator that's like was instrumental in bringing in kind of some of the Tennessee laws about queers and drag queens and stuff, and he's there on Insta like putting like real creepy old man comments on young boys, like young twinks and stuff on their bloody Instagram stuff, like very obviously gay. And it's like,
Yeah.
you know what, if you're that fucking homophobic, usually there's a reason for it. It's usually that you've tried on your wife's knickers and had a tug, haven't you?
Now, like our friend yesterday, imagine, right, let's just sort of say, right, that's real. That person is real. They genuinely don't expect to ever be offended, right? They don't expect anybody to ever say anything to upset them. I saw a really good thing recently, and it was Stormzy, right, talking about when he went off to do his apprenticeship. And he said, I was this sort of black lad from, you know, urban area, and he was like, and I went off to do my apprenticeship, and I was like doing it and staying with a group of white working class lads from Scotland and from England, and he said, and that's where I learned about banter, and I stopped taking myself so seriously. And he was like, he got it, he understood that actually that's what the banter was. It was about saying, stop taking yourself so fucking seriously. Do you know what I mean? And you know, you get to take the piss out of us. We get to take the piss out of you. If we overstep the mark, and it's happened with me in the mess on ship, somebody said something that actually I thought, no, that's overstepping the mark. And I've spoke to them and it's fine.
I don't mind, like, and I would say this is, but one banter is part of British society where if someone takes the piss out of you, then it's a sign of that they like you. If people are actually nice to you, they don't fucking like you.
We would do it where, you know, the new lads, the younger lads would turn up, right? And if someone was taking the piss out of them, you know, and sort of like giving them shit, but the lads weren't saying anything back because they were new, eventually somebody like myself that's been, you know, that had been in for a while would step forward and say, hey, don't take that. Tell them to fuck off. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
we would sort of goad it out of them and say, like, bring it out yourself. Don't let people give you shit. Like, when they're giving you shit, give them shit back, because they don't mean it nastily. But at the same time, if you don't stand up for yourself, they're just going to rip the piss out of you all night long. Like, do you know what I mean? You've got to do something about it. You've got to sort of, and it is that banter. It's about not taking yourself too seriously.
But it's also the intent, I think. Like,
yeah.
So, like,
You know,
an
when something's
insult.
nasty, didn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Like, you know, how it's delivered, the context in which it's delivered. It's like, if you called me a fucking tranny, I would not even blink an eye, and I'd give you fucking shit back and whatnot. But if you just randomly walked up to me in a bar and said, you fucking tranny, it'd be like, bitch, who the fuck are you? And then it would get nasty, you know? But it's the intent in which it's delivered. You know, any of my friends could take the piss out of me. You know, I take the piss out of myself, as you know, and I don't give a shit. And but the people on the left tend to be completely humorless, like completely. And even when you see sort of even kind of middle of the road left wing politics on the BBC and stuff, like it's like that's not really funny. That's just kind of like,
listen, I've got very left wing friends that are funny, that are very funny. Do you know what I mean?
yeah. I think those terms. I think we use those terms left and right, kind of like it's such an obsolete term now, because really, the wokerati, the people who are finding offense, they want to change speech. It's even, I mean, all well wrote, but about, you know, if you want to control the mind, you control the language that someone can use. And I mean, I'm like, I don't get the non-binary thing, particularly, I mean, there's particularly with these kind of Gen Zers, it's usually female, like born female, who are presenting often hyper feminine, going, I want to be called they, them, and they're getting really pissed off when someone refers to them as she. And it's like, but you stood there in a little pink Lolita dress with little frilly socks and Mary Janes on, like, and little fucking clips in your hair, looking all the world like a fucking girl. It's like,
well,
if you were kind of one of those, if you were like androgynous 80s kind of, oh God, what were they called? Adam and the Ant and stuff like that, and Karma Chameleon, what was that? Culture Club, things like that, where it was androgynous. You're like, I don't even know what the fuck that is, like what species it is, let alone what fucking gender it is. It's like, yeah, probably then go like that's a they, them. But if you're presenting as either fucking hyper feminine, often very infantile little girl, and they're going, I want to be they, them. Or if you're a bloke with a big fucking beard and you're
Sam
like
Smith,
a bloody lumberjack.
Sam Smith,
Oh,
Fisher them.
fuck. Don't even start.
No, listen. I like
you're gonna
that.
make me angry.
No, you know when he said that though, I'm telling you, when he said that, I saw the look on his face, and I thought he knows 100%. He knows what he's doing. Isn't it weird though?
Yeah.
That the they them thing, I just won't get on board with. Do you know? I'm not going to call someone.
Yeah, I struggle with that.
It's just bizarre.
You know?
It's really.
I mean, you do get people who are. Do you remember, like, you know, like goths and emos and stuff? And it's like, you didn't have any animosity towards them, but you're like, I don't get that, you know. But hey, that's you, girl. You do you do. And I'm always in that sense, like, you do you. Like, what, as long as it's not hurting, you know, children or animals, and it's consenting adults, you do what the fuck you want.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. What you wanted to bring up, right? You wanted to bring up Sunak Equalities Act. You were going to tell me something about that?
Well, I mean, So I mean, he saw what happened to Nicola Sturgeon, right? With her.
She tied herself in a right knot.
She tied herself in a right knot. Now the thing was, actually, if you read what the actual act said, it wasn't what it was made out by the media, right? So, and I cannot stand Sturgeon, and I cannot believe I'm even slightly defending her on this. But what it actually said isn't what was made out, because basically, again, it was that self-ID thing that we were talking about earlier. It wasn't about saying chucking a wig on and being out going the women's toilets, and people don't understand the difference between a trans woman and a cross-dresser. Right now, cross-dressers are dudes who are invariably straight, who put on usually quite fetishistic clothing for a tug or a fucking stick a dildo up their ass, whatever they want to do. That's that. Again, you do you, Han. Like, not my business. Like, people do plenty worse, right? But it's that people don't really do that. Like, if I wanted to go and sexually assault someone, why would I go through the whole rigmarole of this and taking hormones and like all of that fucking bullshit so that I can go and sniff some fucking toilet seat and knock one out? Like, a bloke can walk into a woman's toilet if he wants, whenever he fucking wants, and just fucking sexually assault someone. That's normally what happens. Or they spike their drink, or they just corner them on a blood, you know, on a quiet alley and rape them and kill them, right? They don't go through this to go fucking do it. It's like, come on, like, fuck off. And it's like the whole thing with, like, because the media's doing this whole thing of trying to kind of make an equivalence between trans people and nonces. It's like, can you show me them? Can you show me those nonsense? But I can show you loads of priests, and I can show you like Asian taxi drivers in Rotherham, and government fucking people, and all these things that are actually provable. Not many drag queens that are nonsense, are they? No. And the other thing is, like, what was the other thing? I was just, shit, just came.
Well, do you not remember back in the day when people would be like, global, like,
global. Oh, I remember it. I just remembered. Sorry. Like these people that go like, I don't want to see my fucking kid fucking seeing a bloke in a dress at school. Then they take him to a fucking panto where I'm the fucking panto dame and a bloke in a dress. In fact, these days I have to kind of ham up the bloke in a dress thing, because that's what makes it funny. And if you want, I'll send you a clip that you can kind of chuck in here of the kind of what do you call it, innuendo and stuff, you know, and
Put it in your endo.
like, but exactly. Ooh. But it's that, you know, the whole thing with panto, it is innuendo, and it's a bloke in a dress, like, who's invariably gay, like, and
yeah, no, I do get
and it's
that.
a whole
But
hammer.
at the same
And
time,
it's like,
though,
but
I
it's like, oh
thought,
well, that's okay. But like, and I get that there's this thing where they think it's the same as a RuPaul's Drag Race kind of. Well, even RuPaul's Drag Race is kind of like fairly tame most
but there's
of the time.
always
But
like,
it's,
even though that's all right, there's always people that take it too far, though, isn't there? Because I saw that thing recently in a
but
school
that's
where it was
in
like,
everything. That's in
yeah, you
everything,
know,
Ricky.
these
I mean, you could
leather-clad
say
men
like,
were
yeah,
flipping,
but I mean,
spinning down and that, and you're like, what are you
yeah,
doing? You can't do that.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean?
But
That's not appropriate.
on the same thing though, you might, if I was a parent, be rather pissed off if my kid got taken without my knowledge to a mosque that was, you know, Finsbury Park Mosque or something, you know. And it's like,
Yeah,
well, yeah, they're obviously extreme, but you know, I take my child to a mosque in Tunisia or somewhere. You know, I went when I was a kid. We went to on a couple of family holidays. I learned to speak a little bit of Arabic. We went to speak, went to Tunisia a few times and took in the culture there. And it's like, well, if you're going to say that all people who are Muslim are terrorists, you're a fucking idiot, right? Obviously. And so it's that kind of, you take that small, teeny tiny bit of extreme part of any given, I say ideology, but you know, way of
group of
thinking,
people.
group of people, and you go, that is the type species of the entire thing. It's like, no, that's not true, and that's obviously insane, right? So to go like, oh, we've got this bit of footage from this one time, this obviously inappropriate act was there, but with the parents there, it wasn't like
Yeah,
it was
I
just
know.
a load of kids,
Yeah, it's
right?
mental.
So the parents are there, so if they didn't want the fucking, they would have kicked off and pulled the kids out. So you know, it's made out that it's like, you know, you've got all these trans people trying to like indoctrinate kids to be trans. Do you know what? I will say this hand on heart. I would not wish being trans on my worst enemy.
No, well, you said this. You said this before, that
Mm.
you wouldn't be trans if you could change it. Do you know what I mean?
No, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. So,
and
and
actually,
I think,
Dave Chappelle done a joke once, which I totally got, because he was like talking about how people are saying, "Oh, you know, I'd love to go back in time to so and so part, blah blah blah," or you know, if I could come back as somebody else.
come
And he
back and
just
kill
went,
Hitler.
well, no, but he just went, I'd probably come back as a white person because it'd be a bit easier. And I thought, yeah, I can understand that. Do you know what I mean? Not that I'm ashamed of, you know what I mean? I'm very comfortable with myself. But actually, like growing up, you think, actually, if I'd been white, that probably would have been a bit easier. But, you know, that's what we were saying, where you find disadvantages and you find advantages, you know, in every sort of group.
But I mean, you know, you might say, I wish I grew up, you know, if I came back, I wish I was rich or whatever, you know. But even then, you say that, you grow back rich. Well, Prince Harry seems pretty fucking miserable, doesn't he?
That's a fucked up family to come from, though. I mean, you're talking about coming from a Nancy family. That's the nonciest family that there is in, you know, in the UK. That is the nonciest family in the UK, like generations deep.